In 2017, like any other year, some pretty interesting things happened. Switzerland created an industrial air capture device that sucks carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere, then resells it as raw material. MIT also revolutionized 3D printing technology, using a robot arm to print structures with gel. 3D printing can now create living human cells and organs, improving healthcare. A NASA astronaut, Peggy Whitson, set a world record for spending the most time in space, 665 days. That same year, my family was in Uganda, searching for a death certificate for somebody whose life had never been documented. So, what do all these events have in common? Well, they show the important relationship between technology and human life, creation and documentation. Many years ago, my aunt in Uganda went missing after having her second child. Presumed to be dead, her two boys, also without a father, were orphaned and taken care of by different members in the community, with financial support from my father in Canada. It was my father's intention to adopt the boys and bring them here. However, one of our biggest hurdles was proving that these boys didn't have parents. My aunt didn't have a birth certificate, which is the case for so many people around the world.
And how do you prove that somebody is dead if you can not prove that they were ever alive in the first place? For people like my aunt, lack of documentation can mean the inability to access healthcare, the loss of mobility, a restriction on just all opportunities. It can mean that you're unable to participate in life. It's like you're not even really here. For us, it meant that we were unable to adopt two orphaned boys. And this all hinged on a single piece of data and access to that single piece of data. You know, it's no secret that in the world today, we are digitally dependent. We are reliant on the creators of digital information and content. But we all have the ability ourselves to be creators of digital information and content. Wherever we are in the world, whoever we are. In fact, our progress in solving our world's unique problems is actually dependent on our connection to data and our access to digital connectivity. We need people with diverse backgrounds and diverse ideas to be able to access the contributions and the research of other people around the world. And as humans, we need a place to store and transfer all of this information without worry of interference. So we need decentralization, and we need access to data. You know, humans are innately creative, and what it means to be human is changing because of our relationship to technology. Our progress, our inspirations, our advances, our impact as people is dependent on our access to the digital world. In fact, if we don't have connectivity, we don't really have a way to prove that we exist. And so we need to start thinking about access and connection as a human right. When I was doing my master's in art and decentralized culture, I came to realize the importance of having a platform where people can connect freely without worry of interference or restrictions or being monitored. And decentralization really just means that nobody can interfere with your usage. It means that governments can't control what or when you search. Websites can't collect information about you and sell it back online. And nobody can just turn it off. What's important about this is that Instead of one or two massive entities owning everything, the decentralized web is controlled by many. It's controlled by those who use it. So by now, I'm sure you've all heard of NFTs, which really just stands for non-fungible token, and that is a smart contract that has a bunch of information determined by those who make the agreement. That can include information about artwork, real estate, assets, and that can also hold information like citizenship or proof of life. What's unique, though, about these tokens or these little contracts is that they live on something called the blockchain, which is a permanent public ledger that is accessible anywhere in the world with access to data. Which means had my aunt had access to blockchain technology or even data, her life could have been documented indefinitely. And while this technology is relatively new, the practice of creation and documentation has been around for as long as humans have. Think about the world that we live in. Everything we know, our molecules, our elements like carbon dioxide and the health of our planet, that's all the direct consequence of people who took time to document their observations throughout history. When you think about it, botanical drawing dates back to 1600 AD. And though we've literally rendered healthcare miracles with 3D printing, it was the writer, the storyteller, that necessitated the printing press in the 15th century. And yes, NASA opened in 1958, but it was the introduction of the NASA Artist Residency Program in 1962 that revolutionized the journey of the astronaut. So you see, all of these examples show the important relationship between creation and documentation. Because when we have those things, we have proof of existence. And we need that to influence progress. And right now, all proof of existence and progress is really dependent on digital connectivity. NASA researchers learned that the connected population, which means people with access to the internet, grew by 200 million during the pandemic. That means 63% of the world's population is connected. And that also means that 37% of the population is still disconnected. And that's largely the result of things like data deserts, data breaks, and data censorship. I think back to 2017, when I met those little boys in Uganda for the first time. They were 7 and 9, and everything they knew about the world, they'd gathered in little snippets from an internet cafe or from people who were traveling through the village. They asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, while I was in school, and I said that I wanted to be a professor or a filmmaker, and they laughed at me. Because women always become teachers, and nobody actually makes movies. And so I asked them, what do they want to be? And they said, well, we want to be farmers or pastors. Because to them, that was the highest, most excellent thing they could become, because that was the world that they were connected to. And that's fine. But then I think about 2019. After years of battling with immigration, we were able to bring those boys to Canada as my little brothers. And after 1 year of being here, they came across a video on YouTube of Elon Musk and his fun inventions. And they learned how spaceships and airplanes worked. And they were in an absolute frenzy. And my little brother comes up to me and he's like, oh my goodness, I didn't know that people could do that. Do you think that I could create that too? You know, it's thanks to the internet that those boys are able to look themselves up and see all of the efforts that were made to bring them here. They are forever digitally accounted for in the course of human history. And because they are connected, they not only have the opportunity to be a part of the world, they have the ability to impact it. So now, at 12 and 14, they want to be pilots and engineers and do these big, bold, brilliant, life-changing things. And you give them a little bit of inspiration, a connection, and they build you this concept. And then you put in front of them a battery, some bolts, and some cardboard, and somehow they bring you an engine. And when you ask them how they know to do that, they say they learned it on the internet. With access to data, we have access to the world. And with access to decentralization, we have the freedom to roam and to build and to dream. So why deny somebody the right to be a part of this life? It is time to make connection possible for everyone. Thank you.